our next speaker will talk to us about stopping voter fraud and how each of us can be personally involved. Alan Vera is one of the founders of True to Vote, a grassroots effort to restore integrity in U.S. elections. He's the National Director of Training for True to Vote. He's written many state-specific election observer curricula, has trained many thousands of observers, and supervised over 20 states in that effort. He wrote the election observer curriculum for Wisconsin in 2012 and trained over 1,000 observers for that recall election of Governor Walker, Scott Walker. He did that in person, online, and via video conference. So this guy knows how to do what he does. Alan is president of the Quest Business Agency in Houston, and he has responsibility for all their marketing strategies. He's with us tonight to teach us how to get even more involved, stopping voter fraud. Please welcome Alan Vera.
Thank you. Good to be here. I'm Alan Vera, and I'm now in my second term as the chairman of the Harris County Republican Party Ballot Security Committee. We're in charge of election integrity in Harris County, and since there is no other ballot security committee in any other Republican county party, we kind of get called for everything. Right now, before I go further, I just want to say what an honor it is to be here with Northeast Tarrant Tea Party. I want to thank each of you for all the work you do, your leadership. I want to thank you especially for the stands that you take. You guys take a stand no matter what it costs you. God bless you for that. Don't ever stop that. Now, how are you? Why are you looking at me? I'd be asking this question. What combination of bizarre circumstances and coincidences, perhaps with some divinely woven intersections, could possibly qualify an old, ugly, Hispanic, Vietnam Army Airborne Ranger vet to address the Northeast Tarrant Tea Party on the topic of election integrity? Well, let me answer that first. As you've heard, I was one of the 6 people chosen by Catherine Engelbrecht to help start a group called True to Vote, nonpartisan and nonprofit, going after election fraud. For reasons known only to God, I was chosen as Director of Curriculum and Training, which meant that I got to memorize the election code of Texas first and convert that into everyday language to train poll watchers to go out and stop the fraud. 2010 was Harris County, 2011 was all of Texas, 2012 we got Big I. Let's go national. And I want to go out and learn the election laws of at least 28 states and translate those into poll watcher classes. Oh, sure, no problem. The greatest experience in that year was between January and May of 2012, when I made multiple trips to the state of Wisconsin for the recall election of Governor Scott Walker. Now up there, they don't call them poll watchers, they call them election observers. They don't have precincts, they have wards. And I thought I could just take my Texas poll watcher training presentation with 61 overhead PowerPoint slides and just do some cutting and pasting. Only one slide was the same. That's how different the election laws are state to state. In those 5 months working in Wisconsin, I got to see the worst of American elections, the absolute worst. I got to see the vulnerability of paper ballots and how one party in particular has become expert in manipulating them. You don't have to go too far back to remember Al Franken winning as senator from Minnesota because someone mysteriously found 28 cartons of ballots that hadn't been counted the night before. It goes on constantly. I also came face to face with the evil of same-day voter registration. You walk into the poll and you register at this table, and 2 minutes later you're voting at that table. No chance to vet, no chance to check you out, you just vote. And then you drive back across the state line because you went from Wisconsin to Charlotte. So I also see face to face the ugliness that grows when labor unions and well-funded political organizations like Acorn are allowed to be too influential. Every trip I made personally to Wisconsin, every drive I made, I was followed by one big GMC SUV. And when I asked my local host from Election Integrity Wisconsin who was in that SUV, it was always the same. It was unions. And I know they were just there to make sure that I got to my next destination safe. When I come back to Houston, after every trip to Wisconsin, I checked my voicemail through the vote, and it was full of threats. Threats against me, threats against my wife, threats against my family, my house, my dogs, my shorts. The hilarious part is, when someone threatens to kill you, but you were infantry, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But I also saw the best in elections. I saw what happens when citizens like you step up and say, this election belongs to us. Not to the parties, not to the unions, not to the acorns, it belongs to we the people. Those cheesehead election observers stepped up in grand style. Not only did they retain Governor Walker as their governor, but in the next 12 months, in only Madison and Milwaukee, we had 44 felony convictions for election fraud. 44. Half with jail time and fines, the other half with fines and and probation. Wisconsin only has as many registered voters as Harris County, Texas. How can they have 44 convictions in 12 months and we can't get that in 12 years? Two reasons. One, our legislators have been lazy in jacking up the penalties, and two, we've been lazy in not catching these people. All 44 convictions came with the same-day voter registration table. In Texas election law, a poll watcher can stand anywhere they need to stand to see and hear what's going on. Right? In Wisconsin, a poll watcher cannot be closer than 10 feet from the transaction. How are you supposed to see the driver's license being held up at the same-day voter registration table from 10 feet away? I'll tell you how. Some wacko from Texas goes around to every dollar store and buys every kid's binoculars set he can find, and every poll watcher's out there with binoculars, and you can see that's not a Wisconsin license, that's an Ohio license, you're going to jail, buddy. That's what it takes. So what's going on? What's going on? Well, as you may know, Catherine Engelbrecht was attacked by the Obama administration in waves. She had 3 IRS audits in a row. Of course, True the Vote went through the same thing Northeast Tea Party went through in terms of being denied their 501c3 for years and years and years. But Catherine was set upon by the IRS. She was visited by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms because she had a gun-making shop with her husband. And she was audited over and over by OSHA, who kept fining her because her plant was not safe. You know it's all BS. Catherine finally folded as far as True the Vote. I was boots on the ground. Other smarter people did all the cool internet stuff. I just went out there and trained people and went to the front lines. In 2013, she made the tough decision that she had to get out of the boots on the ground business and go back to just online, virtual. So what were you to do with the boots on the ground leader? In June of 2014, True the Vote traded me to the Harris County Republican Party for a bag of Mardi Gras beads and a future draft pick. My responsibilities got bigger, but focused only on Texas, and this has been a wild ride. Northeast Tea Party. I mentioned that I'm proud of the way you take stands and don't back down. It's my life every day. One of my favorite Winston Churchill quotes is, "You have enemies, good. It means you stood up for something sometime in your life." And that's what this is. What's going on in Texas? What's going on in Texas is a battle along multiple fronts. Number one is the state legislation. Okay? Every year, 37 wacko Democrats introduce bills that we have to stop, and you need to help stop. Last year it was requiring every election administrator and county clerk to put a polling place at the county jail and pay for it. Okay? 2, it was allow translators for voters from as far away as 7 counties. You know what that's about. One bill after another, someone needs to kill it. We're there every week, killing them and helping them. You need to keep up with it. Okay? Because they do some dumb things. I go and testify every single week after 2015 legislative session, regular session. 3 bills that I tried to kill in committee were passed. But the governor looks at all the videotape of every testimony. And the governor's staff called and said, we want to talk to you about those 3 bills. What's wrong with them? We had 6 2-hour conference calls that week, and on Sunday before the deadline, the governor vetoed all 3. You can make a difference. Secondly, Secretary of State. Secretary of State does a good job. He's a good guy most of the time. Every once in a while, you got to yank up his underwear and give him a wedgie. Doesn't make sense. The Texas laws on voter assistance couldn't be more clear. You can only get assistance if you cannot read or write any of the languages the ballot's in, or if you're physically incapable of manipulating the ballot or marking it. That's it. 2 reasons. Secretary of State's instructions to the county elections official allow all kinds of stuff. Why? Because he's scared of being sued. Well, if we raise a little bit more money, we'll sue him ourselves and get this fixed. The Secretary of State is the second point. Watch what he does. Pay attention, because he affects you. 2014 in Harris County, we had voter ambush. Acorn's descendants, okay, tops, hanging out in the parking lots of polling places, literally ambushing Hispanic female voters, taking them by the arm, going in and announcing themselves as the voter's assistant, and then taking over and voting. Okay? It's a war. Now, Harris County is not as red as Tarrant County. We're already in battles before every election day. I have a team of 7 volunteer lawyers who sit with me and prepare with me for that election. There are 2 appellate courts in Harris County, 1st and 14th. Why? The Texas Election Code gives the presiding judge of an election in a precinct the same authority as a state district judge. How many know that? A state district judge. The county clerk cannot tell them what to do if they choose not to obey them. The appellate court can. So we pre-file all kinds of writs and mandamus documents, and the first report we get of some rogue Democrat judge breaking the law, we're down with a piece of paper stopping it. Okay? That's an issue. Voter registrations. Voter registrations are a mess. Voter registrations are a mess. In 2010, with True the Vote, we went through and we did open records requests for thousands of voter registration cards. How many of you, raise your hand and be honest, know that a registered voter in a county can challenge the voter registration of anybody else registered in that county? Raise your hands. You can. You guys can challenge people who are phoning. That year, we submitted challenges to 17,000 people on the rolls. 17,000. Leo Vasquez, the voter registrar time, threw all 17,000 off the rolls. And the next morning, the building of all of our election equipment burned to the ground. It's real, folks. It's real, I'm not kidding around. But we don't get scared. In fact, we don't get scared. When people threaten to kill you, but you're infantry. Voter registration is phony. Mail ballot is a mess. Mail ballots are a mess. We tried to fix some of that in the last session. Okay? What are the 2 major venues for mail ballots? One is mail ballot harvesting. Those people work hard. They pay off a mail carrier to tell them when they're dropping off mail ballots in people's mailboxes. Then they drive behind them and take them out of the mailboxes and vote them. Or if they've already been taken out of the mailbox by the resident, they then knock on the door and offer to help them. Okay? Offer to help them. That's phony. It's happening all the time. In the last session, regular session and special session, we jacked up to felony status almost all coordinated efforts on mail ballot. We finally put some teeth in it. We have been testifying for 3 sessions that one of the reasons we can't get, like Wisconsin, 44 convictions in 12 months is because our laws are too weak. We jacked them up this time. If you've been watching Starr County down the valley, there's one hotshot, good young DA down there that's got his 3rd arrest in 3 weeks. Because now, it's worth it. It's fraud. It's jail time. We've got to do that. All right? We've got to do that. Now, your incoming county chair knows about this, but how many of you know and have heard of the Early Voting Ballot Board and Signature Verification Committee? Yes. Raise your hand. Okay, how many of you have served on the Early Voting Ballot Board Signature Verification Committee? God bless you. These dedicated people are down at central headquarters, and they look at every single mail ballot that comes in. They compare the signatures. They go back in history and look to see, is this the same person or is somebody else voting this ballot? Okay? In Harris County, in the 2016 general election, they had to look at over 115,000 mail ballots. They were all cross-eyed when they finished. My wife is on that team, and at 6:55 p.m. election night, the last mail ballot she got was from Adam Vera in Afghanistan, voting by mail, and she cleared his ballot through. Our son came through. And the one minute after that, she got the mail ballot from the International Space Station from one of our astronauts who voted remotely. Okay? Those people make a difference. They can stop some mail ballot fraud. Okay? That's also the same group that votes thumbs up or down on provisional ballots. They decide. Okay? Is that ballot going to count or not? Talk to your new county chair. Get involved. Volunteer. Okay? You make a huge difference in the election. Early voting ballot board signature verification committee. Now we come to the big one. The big one. Election day. Election day at the precinct. Now, the problem's all mail ballots, isn't it, Alan? No. Mail ballots are a problem. But mail ballots only make up 10 to 15% of all the votes cast. 85 to 90% of the votes cast in every election is someone coming to a place and voting. Okay? What's going on? Why is it now that for the last 4 years, as we do open records requests, county after county, precinct after precinct, we see a growing trend of the following finding? Brace yourselves. 33% of precincts have more votes than voters. You count the number of ballots in the box or the number of ballots in the JPC machine, and you count the number of people who signed in the poll book, and there's a big discrepancy. There's more votes cast than there are voters. How does that happen? How does that happen? I'll tell you how it happens. Number one, the clerks at the front table are letting people in who aren't on the poll book. They're not in that precinct, and they're letting them vote a regular ballot instead of sending them over for provisional. Simple. You don't live here, no problem. In 2010, I volunteered to be one of the badasses for True the Vote. I volunteered to be an alternate judge. I said, I'll help the Republican Party, but on one condition. You've got to put me in the geographic center of Sheila Jackson Lee's CD. They sent me there, okay? And the presiding judge, the presiding election judge there, had been running elections there for 40 years, had never seen a Republican, did not like me being there. And we had our first, she opened the door at 6 o'clock, we had our first fight at 6:05. She put a blue tape on the floor and told the poll watchers they couldn't cross that line. I got to the county clerk's office and they told her, pick up the tape. She got mad at me, so she punished me. By law, she's allowed to turn the alternate judge into a clerk. She said, I'm making you a clerk, and you're going to work both the books. Throw me in that prior patch. I get to decide who votes that day and who doesn't. 3,300 people came in to vote that day. 3,300. I sent 1,500 away. They weren't in that precinct. But what if we're not there, people? What if we're not there? Do you realize every precinct by Texas law has at least 2,000 voters and as many as 5,000? What if you're not there? Do you realize that the judge and the clerks on their own can sign every name in that book and vote? And who would catch them? Who would catch them? What else do they do? The judge, if they do get a provisional voter, checks the wrong box. The voter is voting provisional because they're not in the poll book, but the judge checks the box that says didn't have driver's license, didn't have the right ID. Well, the voter just drives to the county clerk's office in 6 days, shows photo ID, and the vote counts because the judge lied. That's how you get more votes than voters. The clerk that's working the ballots, if you vote electronically, they're dealing out little slips of paper with a ballot code that you plug in to vote. Or in paper ballot counties are handing out their ballots. They just accidentally give more than one code slip or more than one ballot to the same voter. They're doing it. There's only 3 ways you can end up with more votes than voters. Those are the 3. And they're getting more bold about it. Yeah, send the AG after all the mail ballots. We've got this all hooked up right here. Guys, it's serious. It's serious. And why is it happening? Because we're not there. We're not there. In 2016, my youngest son, Adam, deployed to Afghanistan, just as his older brother had earlier deployed to Bosnia, just as their father deployed to Vietnam, just as their grandfather deployed to the South Pacific during World War II. Our young men and women warriors go to the other side of the earth for a year or more and lay their lives on the line for our freedom. But we won't be willing to go to the other side of the county for a day? To get up and just drive to the other side of the county for one stinking day to protect our freedom at the polling place? I'm not so much about educating as I am firing at. It's a shame to me. It's disgusting that our young people put their lives on the line and we won't get up early and just drive a few extra miles and sit at a Democrat polling place and stop them. Can we stop them? You betcha. In Harris County, we do the forensic analysis after every election. I find a judge that has a high ratio of votes to voters, and guess what? The next precinct where that judge runs an election, he's got 5 of my best poll watchers helping him. Do the numbers correct themselves? Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Now, let's for a second, only for a second, put aside that they might not be doing this on purpose, because I think they are. But let's look at the other possibility. We've got people running our elections, determining the future of your county and your state, determining the future of your children and grandchildren, and we don't even require them to have a GED or a high school diploma. We've got people out there making decisions about your elections, your votes, and we don't know if they can read or write or do basic math. They're not required. Now, I'm going to be testifying on this on the 22nd, a week from Thursday, to a special Senate committee interim study on elections. Something's wrong, people. When the people of Texas, okay, go to such great lengths to provide good education, but then if you put the future of the state in the hands of people who can't read or write or add, we've got a problem. We've got a problem. So this is a call to arms for Tarrant County. And your incoming chair, God bless you. If you need me, I'll be up here before the next November to train poll watchers till the cows come home. And if I can't be in person, we've got videos. We need to get to the polls. We need to go across the county, get someone else to run our polling places for us every general election, and we need to go stop the fraud. Stop it. Now, if you've got time to do the voter registration, that's great. All you do is an open records request to the voter registrar, and you ask for, okay, the voter registration's approved from this date to that date, they'll get them, take a look at it. If you live near someone who died, wait a couple of months and ask for all the voter registration, the current active voter registrations for anyone with those last names. And you can challenge them. You can challenge them. So, we can talk, we can vote, we can campaign, we can work for great candidates, and I saw many here tonight. But if the vote's stolen from you, what's the sense? What's the sense? So what I'm calling for, and what I hope God will speak to your hearts is, we have to deploy. If our young men and women warriors can deploy, we have to deploy. We have to get up a little earlier on election day. We need to talk to our new GOP county chair and get assigned as a poll watcher, as an alternate judge. I need to take the training. I need to gear up. It's not for a year. It's not for a whole year. It's not someplace where they're going to be shooting you. I served in the middle of Sheila Jackson Lee's CD-18 for 5 straight years, and I didn't get shot once. The first time I was there, the local pastor came in and ranted and raved about these white people in a Negro district. That's his word, not mine. Okay, by the 5th time, he was asking me how I was, how my grandkids, how's it going, okay? You take a stand. You take a stand. Texas will stand red. Texas will stand free if we stand. What I need What I'm asking for, what I'm calling for, is an army of patriots like you to stand shoulder to shoulder on the wall of freedom. And whether loudly or in whispers, say defiantly to those agents of dark powers and principalities that are at work in our election, if you plan to steal this election, you have to get past me. Say it with me. If you plan to steal this election, you have to get past me. Make it a promise. Believe it. Live it. And deploy. Thank you so much. Any questions?
I'm a precinct chair and an election judge, and I have sent many away. We've got to do something about the voter ID.
Okay.
It's ridiculous that they can bring in.
Got it. Voter ID. The plan is in the works right now. We'll have it fixed probably in 2 years. None of us like that, okay? When SB 5 came up with a photo ID with the RID, okay, the reasonable impediment declaration, I raised hell. I raised so much hell, and I got my county chair to raise hell, that the AG called us in for a 90-minute briefing. All right. Bad news is we screwed up when the suit was filed against our photo ID. We screwed up badly. Our Attorney General allowed the Democrats to claim that 650,000 Texas voters had been disenfranchised because they had no photo ID. We could have challenged that document in the Corpus Christi court. We didn't challenge that. We simply defended the bill on its own merit. Once you fail to challenge a district court, it becomes fact. It becomes evidence. We blew it. We blew it. So, this whole thing now with the RID and SB 5 was all orchestrated by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals and the new DOJ. So we had to go through this process, okay? Now we'll have to do this election if we're going to keep track of and revet how many of those people who used an RID actually have a photo ID, actually have a driver's license. And we'll go back to the court and say, hey, look at this. 95% of those using the RID already have photo ID. We need to reinstate the old law. We think we'll get it.
Could you describe the process a little bit more completely about the challenge?
Okay.
Of the
All right. By Texas law, any registered voter in the county can challenge the voter registration in any other county. Texas has the Texas Public Information Act. You can send an email to the voter registrar and say, under the Texas Public Information Act, I'm requesting the following voter registration records. Make it specific. Tell them what you want. Okay? Go to the Freedom of Information Foundation, and they'll show you how to write those things. Send it in. They've got 10 days to give you the information you ask for. If not, you tell the AG and they'll make them do it. Then you sit down and go through it. Okay? The team I have, we've got have a background check software we use. Okay? We do all the usual sorts. How do people in Texas get multiple IDs? People with 8 names. Maria, Oswego, no, and they've got a voter registration card for every combination of those names. Sort them that way first, you'll see them, and they're all the same address. Then you challenge them. Okay? Challenge them. In the back, I'm sorry, a couple?
Right here.
Yes.
In 2012, can't hear you.
In 2012, Catherine did her very best to bring to light the fraud that happened across the United States. And Ruth Priebus eventually admitted to her that several communities could not be challenged because of the consent decree from 1982. And what has been done about that, and is it still in effect?
The New Jersey consent decree, okay, was done after a contentious election in which the Democrat Party, as usual, sued the RNC. The RNC, before starting fighting, raised the white flag and signed a consent decree called the New Jersey Consent, where the RNC agreed not to pursue election integrity, not to pursue election fraud for 20 years. That order has just been lifted in December. I'm now telling the RNC, show me the money. It's been lifted, so the RNC is no longer restricted. But yes, the RNC voluntarily said, we won't pursue voter fraud. We agree for 20 years.
Is that just for New Jersey?
No.
In ethnic areas, especially.
It was the RNC. Now, we pursue it. The county parties can still fight it, but the RNC could not give money to it or anything. Other than going on, folks, real quick before I forget, we have good allies. In November, I became the Texas representative of what's called the Voter Integrity Institute. That's J. Christian Adams, Hans von Spokowski, etc. Okay, good people. We're about to file suit against Harris County because they won't release all the Hispanic surname voter registrations so we can check for the illegals registered to vote. We're going to get this done. We've already sued San Antonio for coughing up the information, Vera County. Harris is next, we're going to go right across Texas till we get that cleaned up. Yes, sir.
Yes, in 2014, there was a lawsuit filed for the failure of Texas to maintain proper records, electronic records, for audit and for recounts. What's happening with the lawsuit? Laura Presley out of Austin, I believe, filed that lawsuit.
Yeah.
And do not know where it is.
Okay. At the risk of, I don't want to be sued for defamation, okay? Laura Presley, okay, has said a bunch of things and filed a bunch of things. Her lawsuit has been defeated at district court. She lost at the appellate court. She's now at the state Supreme Court. Both the district and the appellate courts have said that she failed to provide even a scintilla of evidence. But she's still going around to Republican women's groups, giving her talk and getting money. She's raised $92,000 so far for Republican women's groups for going around talking about this. What's that money going for? Her case was so frivolous that the judge of the original, it was a visiting Republican judge from Williamson County, here in Austin, he fined her $40,000 and her lawyer $50,000 for bringing a frivolous lawsuit. So it's going nowhere. One more question.
How can we contact you or find you again?
Call the Harris County Republican Party, and I'll give my email stuff to your new GOP chair, incoming, and you guys can get hold of me. I'm everywhere. And I always travel at night. God bless you.